Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm back out in the torch shop making another marble today, and we're going to stick to something fairly basic, fairly familiar to me. Today's Thanksgiving Day as I record this, so let's get into it. Got to get this going before I can enjoy dinner tonight. Alright, we're going to just jump into our main big fat rod, 19mm glass rod. We're going to get this prepped to our initial cone shape. So that process takes a minute. So as I said, today is Thanksgiving Day for me. I don't know what it is for you when you're watching this, but whatever day it is, I hope you have things to be thankful for. I know it's kind of an issue for people that are in a tough spot and they can think, so what in the world is there to be thankful about? This is messed up. But you'll learn as time goes by that there is always so much to be thankful for. But it is a practice if it's not something you're familiar with doing. It does take focus. So you start out small, little things. The glass rod here already has a defect going on. Let's see if we can overcome this. But yeah, I'm fortunate and thankful. I don't have to travel very far to enjoy Thanksgiving. I'm just going across the field 100 yards to my sister's house. And we have just kind of a small get-together with just a very small bit of family and some friends. And I really look forward to it. Some people kind of approach Thanksgiving like, oh my God, I have to put up with all these people. But, been there, done that, but recent years we've had a very good Thanksgiving group. There'll just be 7 of us, I guess, this year. Okay, getting this gather built up. Letting it kind of fall back on itself. Yeah, that was kind of a weird line. It was some sort of a scratch line or something that started basically cracking and going to tear out some glass there that was looking kind of sketchy. So I hope this rod doesn't have any other defects in it that spring to life. And yeah, I was sort of thinking I wouldn't be able to do this marble today. And this morning, I thought, you know what? Even though it's Thanksgiving Day, I think I'll get out here and enjoy doing a little glass work to start my adventures. a little literally nitpicky here, because as this marble evolves, I won't really have a chance to clean any of this up until towards the final stages. So we'll kind of try and start out clean and consistent. And then we'll get out of the heat and wait for a minute for this to set up. Get this on my patent pending tin can roller. Okay, then we're going to start cutting in our angle here. So we're going to kind of make a elongated cone here. So we'll raise our angle of attack up and let it drop down. As I'm blocking the view, sorry. Okay, that's kind of our starting point. Alright, we're going to start out, jump into some gold fume. Trying to warm this up. Shop was a little chilly this morning, but I think it's gotten pretty well warmed up. Okay. So this initial phase is kind of a basket weave concept. So we're going to start out doing vertical lines. And I'll kind of do this split thing, so we go 180. I can see through the marble and see the line I just put down. This makes it kind of an easy layout. Then I go to where it looks like an even, split that difference. Around to the other side again. Split that difference. And just kind of keep doing that as much as I can. Now I don't really want the lines to overlap too much, so these other ones will start a little bit lower or farther back, however you want to look at it. Okay. Now we got all these little tails sticking up, so we're going to flatten those down. So they're not interfering. And then we got a bunch of spilled over fume, so we'll get that hopefully cooked off. So we want to melt this layer in before we move forward. So sometimes I think about this angle, getting that cone shape angle square to the torch fire. Which means kind of holding the rod out here at an angle. Watch that fume in between the clear lines disappearing. Okay. Now, I'll set this down for a moment. The next thing we'll want to do is get this point. Sharpen the point here. So heat this up, grab a hold, and give it a bit of a tug. Alright, that's the first layer. This is going to be a layered cake. Now we're going to go to a silver fume. There's too much fire. So we'll heat that silver in a little bit. Okay, the next pass is going to be a spiral. So try to keep the marble well below the flames so we're not interfering with that fume too much. And we'll break off and do a spiral. here to the end. I'll heat that in. So this whole methodology is pretty simplistic. Allows you to kind of play around with some fume effects. Don't have to think too deep about it. And it's fine to use this big heat up to a point, but you really don't need to be heating that interior of the marble, so sort of dial this back to the smaller flame, but give it some intensity. Okay, with this run, I'm going to do a little marbling. Okay. We're going to switch back and forth, so now we're going to do a gold fume layer. The gold fume wants this base glass to be a little lower temperature. Alright. I need another piece of glass here, I think. We're going to kind of repeat that same bunch of lines. We don't care about repeating it on top of the old lines underneath. This is a separate layer, so it's just on its own. But I can't quite see through just as easily. So sometimes I do a twist before this layer. I'm going to keep these two layers kind of straight, and then we'll do a twist. So aside from being slightly shaky, this is kind of a relaxing, kind of a mellow buildup. And then we'll hit down these bumps before we get too far. That way we won't generate little fizzy bombs. And I don't know if you really see it too much in the video, but it's already generating a lot of interesting colors. Of course, glass when it's hot, when you work glass, it's one of the fun things about working with glass is that it looks really cool at certain stages when it's hot. And it'll never look like that in real life, but cobalt when it's glowing red at the right consistency is just really a magical look. Kind of mesmerizing. So again, we'll switch down to a smaller fire to try and burn out some of that fume in between the lines. And while we've got a good heat going on here, we're going to do a little rotation. So I'm using some pressure up towards the large diameter edge, kind of smush that together. And then we're going to use a little bit of torque. You can see those lines starting to move. And we're going with the same direction as our spiral, so if anything we're concentrating that spiral. Okay, and this very tip you can again sharpen that end. Alright, what did we do last time? Gold? This time we're going to do silver. We're not done yet with our crazy layers. Okay, it's a little hard to tell all these other fume layers as to how much we've got on there. Okay, but we're going to do the next layer as pillows or bubbles or whatever you want to look at it, dots. So we'll start out on the upper edge. each one of these layers kind of reacts to the layer underneath and gives it different dimensions. As you add raised glass and then melt it in, you kind of get some geometric 3D transformation. Now when I do a second layer here, I'm still using kind of the same big drops, so they're not going to align in any particular way with the first row. It's kind of a different take. A lot of artists would want to replicate. Sometimes it gives you a little bit of an offset. You've got an odd space. So drop down to our third row. Ideally, all these dots stay independent. They're not connected to any other one. Oops, that one got a little messed up. Okay, that is all the fume layers were clear that we're going to do. That's not the end of the fuming. So generating all these layers of texture and fume, alternating between gold fume and silver fume, build a pretty diverse tapestry inside. Just kind of gently push these in. Okay, next stage is some red frit. It's one of my kind of favored backgrounds. It would be red frit and then black. So, gotta get this good and hot for our frit pickup. Okay, so as I often do with this, I just want kind of a loose bit of frit. And I do want this pretty well cooked in. And once again, we need to let this settle. Just get a sip of something. Some very empty coffee. But I've got my instruction manual here on my mug. So if I ever get confused, I can refer to this, although this one is showing an internal central plume that this marble doesn't have, so I've already gone off script. Okay, guess what? We're going to do some gold fume. Okay, then I roll this, after I use this fume rod, I roll it on the marver here to kind of push that gold up to the surface, because otherwise it just seems to get sucked in there and disappears. Okay, now we got our background interior design. Oh well. Okay, now we're going to use jet black. I'm going to try and roll this on. and I'm not connecting, I'm spiraling this on, and it's going to spread out and fill in those gaps to a large degree. At least that's the plan. Coax this together with the marver to smush that glass down and spread it out. Now, I do have some gaps in between here. So we'll use a thinner stringer of black glass to try and cover up . So putting on gold there after the frit and covering it with black will generally produce a mirror kind of finish on the background. Try and make sure this very end is pretty well covered. I don't know, I tend to find an open translucent end to the marble kind of distracting. But an open end is also a look some people want. Set it on a light stand and illuminate the interior. But that's not what this one's going to do. Okay, well this one's getting kind of big. So I'm going to move on to filling in the back. A lot of times I fume this back black or whatever dark background color and fume it to make a effect underneath the color lines that I do on the back side, but today I just jumped ahead and started filling this in. It's a little short. Set that down and grab another boost. So this takes a little minute to get this filled in. So yeah, I'll go back to my references with gratitude. There's a story that I often share with a friend of the family. Many years ago, probably about 25 years ago, and she was visiting, and at the time I was probably at the kitchen table, and I had a handful of utility bills and whatnot that I was paying, and I was kind of in a grumpy mood, and she was like, well, you seem to be not very cheerful about this. I was like, well, I got these bills that I'm paying, and I don't have a lot of money. This is hard. And she related that she always gives blessings to each bill as she pays them. And I was sort of like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, aren't you glad that the power company is providing you with electricity? It's like, well, yeah, you could look at it that way. That's, it's like, well, what if you didn't have that electricity? What would life be like? And anybody that's, most of us have experienced a power outage at some time, and it quickly kind of sucks. And it's like, well, you're right. I should be more grateful to the power company. And back in those days, the phone bill could be all over the place because you had to pay for long distance back a few years ago. And I was always chasing after some deal, on long distance service, switch different setups through the years. But there'd be times when the phone bill was, hundreds of dollars. It was a lot. And again, she'd be like, yeah, but what if you didn't have a phone? What would life be like if you couldn't reach out to your loved ones and have a conversation with them every day or every week or whatever? I was like, yeah, it's true. It would be kind of a different life if I couldn't connect to people long distance. So we just kind of went on with that, whether it's your housing or your utilities or whatever it is. And I get it. Sometimes, you literally don't have the money, and that is a whole nother challenge. I've been there. Never thought I'd be there, but I've been there. So sometimes you have to seek help, ask for some help, which is hard to do sometimes, but sometimes we all need a little help. But anyway, it's a practice to, I had to kind of force myself from that point on, every time I had bills to pay, to think of Angèle and think of her little life lesson of give it blessings. Be glad that you can pay that bill and continue having that service. Okay, this thing's getting kind of huge. I'm gonna have to call it and let it settle into whatever it wants to be at this point. So it won't be quite the full rounded out from cone to semicircle hemisphere. It's just going to be getting a little bit of a condensed version. But for this particular pattern, I don't think it'll matter too much. But for us here, we're doing quite well, and all things considered. And like I say, been there, done that. I've been on food assistance. I've been on Medicaid. I've also worked a job for a good-sized corporation where I had all kinds of benefits. And I've chosen this life. Chosen to try and be self-employed and do my own thing. And it has definitely been challenging, but at some point it's very rewarding as well. Trying to just let this pretty lumpy bumpy here, just trying to get it to round up on its own. As much as I can. At some point you think, this is never going to work. Coax it along just a little bit. I got another size marble mold down here, 2.5 inch, and I rounded the edges and polished it up a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Doesn't have to be perfect at this stage. Okay, backside colors. We got stringers of Silver Strike 5 to start. Okay, and then let's see, what do we got here? This is Dragon's Eye, which is a reactive color, and I don't know, I was thinking earlier, I can't remember the last time I used this on a back side color like this. It's been a long time if I've ever used it. I presume I probably have. So I'm just kind of hoping it doesn't do something really horrible, and that's the reason I haven't been using it on the back side like this. So it'll do something on its own, most likely. So it's a bit unpredictable at this point in my mind, anyway, as to what I'm going to get with it. But some of these reactive colors, it depends on what's next to it. And then this other one that I've been enjoying is this IO Star. I used this last week. I really liked it. So sometimes when I try different combinations, you know, just change one of the colors. Don't try and mix up all kinds of different things every time necessarily. You don't need to. Swapping out one color will change the palette considerably. Okay, making progress here. This is one of those steps where you just want to really hit the surface. You don't really need the heat to soak in very far. But I do need these color lines all the way heated through. I'm about an hour into it to get to this point. Well, at least for this part, these colors seem to like each other. We got the minimal amount off axis. Now this is the kind of stage where, why I was wanting to play around with this larger marble mold, is when you just want kind of a curvature to like smoothing things together. It works nicely. Looking good. So now we just need to build up that lens. Plenty warm enough now. Okay, heat up our base heat, heat up our rod. I want a full-on stick there. Now we did a lot of fuming, so there's a lot of messy spillover out here on the clear lens side. So that's going to be pushed up onto the shoulder and hopefully tear most of that off, but this is likely to have some remnants. We need to just give it some time to start building up onto that rim. I need to actually adjust that big flame somehow. It's a little on the extra big side right now. Kind of do this in bursts. So we're feeding in a clear rod here with some really nice clean clear glass. And we're building this up so much that the outer skin of the rod that we're pushing in here is going to have a certain amount of different characteristics. Plus just the time in the torch, the surface glass is changing, literally changing chemistry. That bright yellow sodium flare that you see coming off the glass is sodium and other elements in the glass literally burning off, and that's in effect creating a crust. And the glass is slightly different than what's on the interior. So in a few minutes I'm going to have this built up, and then I'm going to strip off a bunch of that surface glass. In the meantime, it's a fair bit of a chunk of glass. The weight of the marble starts really being evident in my right hand. It's a lot to hold up even at this size. Keep rotating and keeping it in position. Most throughout this process of using we're not pushing this together. We're trying to let glass melt in on its own, basically. And then it's going to be just a very slight compression force, but it's very little. Okay, so I think I got enough glass. I'm going to come out here to the roller. Isn't very hot there. It's not like the rollers are going to cut cold glass. Okay, we're free. It's nice to have some slightly longer tweezers for this step as I come up close to the marble here. It is hot, hot. I kind of want to get in and get out really quickly. Where that glass bubbles up, it's really bright. Okay, I'm going to be pretty careful to make sure we clean up as much of this surface as we can without losing too much glass. I mean, we don't want to just tear off all this clear. We just want to skim off the stuff that's problematic. And you can't really see this in the videos, but I can see as the glass gets up to a temperature, starts really glowing, you can see the surface anomalies. So I'm not just blindly going at it here, I can actually see something. Oops. Drag right up against that edge. Tuck that back in. Like pulling a thread on a sweater, you know right away, it's like, oh, that's not good. Kind of a different angle to dig into this front face. Again, just kind of look as it's heating up, just kind of looking for any strange stuff. Pretty much if you can see something on the surface, you need to get rid of it. You should be able to get that glass to be hot and not really see anything except all an even glow. Alright. I got this kind of cranked up. Start some very slow rotations of the heat. And this is a bit of an angle sticking up. It should slowly condense back. Because we got to get from this crazy egg shape to a round marble. So everything is done at this step except shaping. Some fast rotation. The clear moves a lot faster than the color, so the clear part is already kind of shaped up more or less. We'll do a little run on the elm over here to square up that circumference. Okay. And this whole thing is pretty hot, so attaching a puntee at this step is going to be pretty soft. So as we're going to flame cut off the other side of the old puntee, and as we do that, we may need to go vertical here to make sure that we're not flopping around. Feels pretty solid. Let's move a little bit, that's okay. But because we burned it off, then we have to kind of pull out that clear. Okay, got that cleaned up. Now the colored stuff and fume stuff is a lot stiffer, doesn't move nearly as quickly. But our clear half is pretty much where we want it, so we want to magically get one half of this hot, which of course is not going to happen, but it's kind of the predicament you're up to at this point. And because I got this larger marble mold, I'm going to use a little bit different methodology of shaping this up. So when I go into this larger marble mold, I kind of want to hit that shoulder towards the end, but not all the way at the end. In other words, I don't want to stick it in there and force it into shape. I want to coax it into shape. So my oxygen supply is going to go through a significant upgrade, hopefully, here in the next few weeks. I'm going to be adding some components to kind of shake things up here in the torch shop. Project that I've been sort of putting off for years because I thought it would be complicated or spendy or whatever, and I've kind of got it broken down to where it's not going to be very expensive and not going to be very complicated. Yeah, I'm not sure what size this marble is going to end up, but it's a bit larger than what I typically am doing. It's kind of the way it goes with me. A lot of things I start out one size and it slowly creeps up to a different size. And then I have to really change my intro. You know, a lot of things kind of get set by the first steps and size of your initial prep. Basically, the surge tank that I use gets depleted at this stage, and I'm kind of losing. It's like my oxygen supply is dwindling. I'd have to stop here and wait a few minutes for it to bump back up. If I can find one, it'd be nice to have an incremental 2 1/4 inch marble mold. That would help my process at this stage. Kind of see inside there a little bit. And my layered cake, when I did my build-up, wound up, I should have started with a smaller cone to begin with, but I'm glad I did what I did. I mean, it's, when you have a little more real estate to work with, it makes it easier to draw patterns and get a lot of fume in place. We're getting close, but that last little gap is just always kind of frustrating, how long it takes to coax that together. Okay, I'm really close here, but I'm going to go ahead and spin this up for a little while. Get that core temperature down. Because I saw a little boo-boo on here. It was in a bubble. Shaking around too much to... Try and break the surface with little bubbles like that. And then we just soak some heat right on those spots. Okay. I swear it's the same port on that face that builds up a little carbon. It's the first place it happens anyway. Okay, because we allowed our core temperature to settle down. Now we can do really slow rotations and just focus on that surface layer. And do maybe some kind of quick repetition. Can't say the right word. Revolutions is good enough in the marble mold. Rotations, that's what I was trying to say. This is feeling pretty buttery smooth. Alright, it's good enough to switch over, I think. After we do just a little flame polish. Just about got ahead of myself and didn't do that little flame polish step. This part's hot. Can't touch that part. Been working for a while. These carbon surfaces are screeching hot. Okay, cut off that old punty, and we're on our last punty, so this should be it. Don't want to do that. I just grazed my finger and jerk. That's how you can get this thing to knock off the punchy. You don't want that. Did I say a bad word there? I'll have to bleep that out. Okay, I'm going for the final push here. You shouldn't have your glass in front of the torch when you hit the foot pedal to turn on the big fire, because that pop can throw little shrapnel out. But apparently I haven't learned my lesson just yet. First pass through the marble mold on the clear side and sometimes shift quite a bit of glass, and that actually worked out pretty well. It kind of filled in the dent in the front face. So once you've got things kind of where you want it, then when you get out of the fire you want to wait a moment. Don't throw it right into that marble mold just yet. Start on the back side that's solid. Come in and rotate. I think we're looking pretty good. I often get to this phase and I'm kind of like, well, I could just stop right this minute. And I think, well, maybe just let it cool off here a second. Kind of scrutinize the reflections. You spent this much time in it. If it takes a couple more minutes to finish it, really should give yourself a couple more minutes. Just enough to check it out. Things are looking good. I'll just hit it one more time for good measure. I am looking forward to our Thanksgiving dinner this evening. And getting this marble done in the morning gives me lots of time to just chill and enjoy the day. So I'm super glad for anyone that's watching at this point of this video. Thank you so much for participating. Okay, before we get to where we can knock this off the putty, we want to make sure it's cooled down enough so that when I rest it in the marble mold it doesn't leave a mark. And I think this is a pretty successful marble. That took a little bite out. I don't really want it to take a bite out of there, but sometimes it does. I might have made a little window in the bottom of the marble yet. Alright guys, you did a good job today. It's a good day in the support shop. Got us a cool marble to go in the kiln. Beautiful sunshine outside right now. Alrighty, off we go into the kiln. We're all good for today. Thanks so much, you guys, for hanging out, watching any of our marble adventure videos. I hope you found it interesting, entertaining, educational perhaps. And we all wish you the very best. Take care of yourselves. Be kind and be thankful. And we'll see you on another adventure another day. Take care.